right. And it looks like we're on. I have to do this again because something happened with the audio on the last go, and there just wasn't any. So we're doing this again. Maybe it'll actually be better this time around. Yeah, so hello. If you'll notice, I have a pop filter for the microphone now. And I'm hoping that's going to take care of some of these sound issues. Apparently not, though. Well, it's not going to pop so much when I speak into it now, and it's going to pick up a lot less ambient noise, hopefully, from the background. But there will be noise that's still picking up conversation on the street, and like I mentioned, it's actually it's getting nicer here. So people are outside, they're milling about, they're riding their bikes. I live right down the street from a really beautiful big park, so any day of the week when it's nice, people just, they're all over this neighborhood. So you'll hear kids and things like that, and that's not such a big deal. Sometimes a gust of wind will come through and you'll hear my blinds clacking, or even see them for that matter. It is warm. I'm on the top floor, so I'm going to actually keep the window open. And also I'm wearing a hat because I'm so pasty that I'm noticing in the other videos my bald pate is blinding a little bit. It looks like I have a halo. I'm not trying to get rid of my halo or hide my halo, or as I like to say, it's just angels farting on my head. Anyway, folks, so take two. What did I want to talk about today, and what did I talk about just now? In the previous video, I wanted to touch on the subject of news, observing the news, watching the news, reading the news every day. And I used to be such a news junkie, right? I mean, I couldn't go a single day without checking the news, and even I was doing it constantly, even throughout the day, constantly looking at the news, right? And at that time when I was doing that, it didn't seem to bother me so much, or I didn't really notice if it was bothering me, or what effect looking at the news, which I think we can all agree is a generally negative experience. Considering what most news outlets put out there, it tends to be a very negative kind of material, right? I didn't notice what effect it was having on me when I was engaging in that activity. But once I started going down this other road, once I started learning about law of attraction and thinking more positively and raising your vibration and getting into the vortex, I began to notice an odd phenomenon, which was that reading the news was bothering me much more than it usually did. Right? Getting up every morning with my cup of coffee and looking at the news was actually beginning to make me physically ill. And this was coming at a time when I was really sort of, I was meditating more. I was meditating regularly. I was eating well. I was exercising more. I was kind of taking care of myself because I wanted to really get to that place of having a better outlook and a better mindset, right? So the more I engaged in that, the worse I felt when I looked at things that were awful. And this is one of those things that Abraham Hicks talked about, which is that once you do you do raise your vibration more regularly, you're on a high-flying disc more often, the negative things and even the negative people will suddenly affect you even more. It'll feel worse, because what's happening is that when you were sort of thinking more negatively, that negativity was sort of your default mode, it didn't stand out so much. But now that your default mode is becoming more and more positive and optimistic, those negative things and people will stand out like a sore thumb, right? They actually make you feel worse because you are operating on a little bit of a different level now, right? So it would make sense that would affect you even more deeply now, because you're not exposing yourself to those things as often, all right? But here's the thing about that, right? this is an interesting topic, and one that I want to get back to, because people struggle with this one a lot. And one of the things they struggle with the most is the idea that they feel they're afraid of becoming disengaged from the world, right? They're afraid of becoming disengaged from their community, their country, what's happening on the planet. They worry about the environment and the political situation here and the political situation there, and they worry about conflicts, and they worry about refugees and starving children, and those are all things, noble things to be concerned about. But your feeling bad about those things is not actually helping those things, and we know that now. If you are in any way a student of law of attraction, and have been for any significant period of time, then you understand that focusing on those things more actually will attract more of them into your reality, right? So is the answer really to completely shut it off, though, right? And this is what a lot of teachers will tell us, is that just don't look at the news anymore. It doesn't matter, right? You're not going to change it anyway. You can't fix the world. You didn't come here to fix the world. You came here to align yourself with what you want, right? We have difficulty with that because, we don't want to completely disengage from what's happening out there, right? I was such a news junkie that it felt like I was going through withdrawal when I was completely disengaging from looking at the news and the headlines every day. I've gone back to scanning the headlines very briefly now, very briefly. But really just a few seconds and then it's over, right? And I don't do it first thing in the morning. I get myself a little bit more aligned now, and then I kind of peek. I take a peek. I'm like, okay, what's happening out there, right? It can seem a little bit daunting, especially for someone who is very engaged in those things, and then suddenly you discover this material and you're kind of being told, like, don't engage in that kind of stuff, right? Don't look at the news, don't look at these terrible documentaries, don't look at crime stories and things. We have all these things. We're so fascinated in our culture with these things, locked up behind bars and all these things you find. They do have an effect on how you operate day to day. They do have an effect on your mind, on your well-being, on how you vibrate, and also on what you create in your life, what you attract to you, right? But here's the thing, and here's what I want to touch on. You can try this. If you're a person who's very much engaged in all the information out there, very much engaged in the reporting and the news and the headlines and the current events, and you want to stay abreast of it, give it a couple of days where you just completely cut yourself off from it, right? And I'm not saying this in terms of like, dramatically change your life now. I'm just saying give it a couple of days as a test, just to see how you respond to it. What you might find, interestingly enough, is that you'll probably kind of be fidgety. You'll go through you'll have this weird nervous feeling in the pit of your stomach, like you'll go through these, they're withdrawal symptoms is what they are. I really believe that. I went through those kinds of symptoms, right? Like if you've ever been a smoker and you quit, you know what that is, all right? We become addicted to this kind of information, and we become addicted and accustomed to feeling a certain way about things and about the world, which is really just a sort of just a representation of how we look at ourselves in our personal lives, right? That's really what it is. I mean, if we're people who see problems in our larger world all the time, then chances are in our personal, private lives, we're doing the same thing, right? We're engaging in a lot of negative self-talk. We're engaging a lot of just speaking about our problems all the time to people and that kind of thing, right? And we know if we practice this stuff and these teachings, if we practice law of attraction, that means if we are practicing becoming deliberate creators in our lives, then we're going to have to change track in a lot of ways, and we're going to have to change up a lot of habits that we've picked up over the years. So I want you to give it a shot. For a couple of days, if you're one of these people that looks at the news all the time, stop for 2 days. Then try to push it to a week and just see how you feel after the first couple of days. It's going to be a good indicator of how you're generally vibrating in your life overall, right? it's going to give you a clue as to what your predominant state of being is, right? And what are your predominant thought patterns? Are you a person that is quick to look at the negative and very slow to look at the positive things in life, right? So give that a shot. But here's the thing, and if you really are sort of, I don't know if I'm ready for that, here's another option. And this is actually one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, because, and I was thinking of a quote by Mr. Rogers, right, of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood fame, for those of you old enough to remember that show when you were children. Mr. Rogers said once, actually I believe it was him, don't hold me to that, but I believe it was him. He said once that when he was younger, he had asked his mother about all the terrible things happening in the world. And, you know, the news has always reported terrible things, apparently. And he said that his mother told him, when things get a little scary, and you get a little frightened and uneasy about things, look for the helpers. Look for the helpers. Look for the ones who are helping. Look for the ones who are doing good in the world. And basically what she was saying in a nutshell, I think, is that she was saying, look for the good news, right? So if you absolutely don't want to shut yourself off from engaging in what's happening out there in the larger world, then switch tack a little bit. Look for good news. And here's something interesting you're going to find. Here's what you're going to do, all right? You're going to Google good news. That's what you're going to Google, the term good news. And you're going to see, interestingly enough, you're going to see all these links pop up from CNN to whatever, ABC, NBC News, CBS News, Fox News even. All these links are going to pop up to their good news sections. So isn't that interesting? All these media outlets have good news sections. It's just go to their websites and try to find them, and it's virtually impossible. But if you Google good news, it'll link you directly to those sections, right? You'll see it on the first page of results. So that's an interesting experiment to do. And more importantly, go to this particular site, and if you Google good news, at the very top of the page in the results is going to be a site called the Good News Network. And I'm going to drop the link down in the descriptions. But if I just head over here for a minute to the Good News Network, it's goodnewsnetwork.org. And, you know, this is, you go to their homepage here. What does it say? There's a quote by a Melody Beatty. Being thankful unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough. It brings peace for today. So this is their philosophy, right? And if you go on their website, here's, you know, you're staying abreast of what's happening in the world, but they're putting a different spin on it, right? Check out this. JetBlue offsets over 2 billion pounds of CO2 emissions, right? Now, look at anywhere else. It's like global warming. The world is going to shit, right? It's going to hell in a handbasket. But look, there are people and there are companies doing things, right? Look at this one here. Michael Bloomberg to write $4.5 million check to cover U.S. commitment to Paris Climate Agreement. So the United States stepped out of the Paris Climate Agreement last year. A lot of people up in arms about that, with good reason. But here's the guy going, you know what? I'm a billionaire. I'll supplement what our government was going to pay. So he's doing some good in the world, right? Look at this. More than 70 volunteers fix up childhood home so homeless veteran can move back in. So here's a community of people coming together to help this veteran who's homeless, help him move back into his childhood home, right? There are people doing good in the world. When student could not find his calling, he used architecture to build some stability for refugees. So here's a kid, a young person, who is finding his path through being of service to others, right? I mean, the site is full of this stuff. You they have a good news section, a good talks section, which is, I'm not sure what that is exactly. Good gifts. Get involved. Here's a way you can actually become a member of their site. You can subscribe to their site. So anyway, to make a long story short, I want you to be more aware of what you put into your mind, just as you would be more aware of what you put into your body. All right? It's so important. We talk a lot about good nutrition and good food in our culture, and it's a good trend, right? People are more conscientious of what they put into their physical body, but we're not quite yet conscientious enough about what we put into our mind. And it's just as important. I feel it's just as important. So become aware of what you're consuming. What is the nutritional value of the information that you consume every day? And throughout the whole day, right? Start to take note of it and start to sort of, maybe you can keep a journal even, or a checklist, or look at what you're looking at every day and try to figure out how it's making you feel. And I guarantee you, if it's a lot of negative stuff that you're putting into your mind, it's going to affect how you feel throughout the day. And that's going to affect how you think, how you talk, how you vibrate, your frequency. It's going to affect what you attract into your life. It's going to affect what you create for yourself. All right? So I want you to take a break for a couple of days. Just try it out and see, because it's going to really show you what you've been eating with your mind, right? What you've been shoving up in there. Is it good food? Is it bad food? Right? I find there's people who cut out sugar and cut out carbs. They get, it's like withdrawals coming in, right? You're going to find the same thing when you cut out negative information. So I want you to try it for a couple of days. See how long you can go. And then I want you to start thinking about where you can consume better information, more nutritious information. One place to start I gave you today is the Good News Network, or just do a search on Google for good news. All right, and you'll still be made aware of what's happening in the world, but you're going to have a very different spin on things, and you're going to have a different perspective. That maybe everything we're going through as a species is maybe it's growing pains, but I really believe that we're on the precipice of some very great progress, right? And that's another thing you can do. I like to go to the BBC and go to their science and technology section. You're going to find people there, stories about people there, scientists and researchers who are finding all kinds of amazing things to help beat cancer, AIDS, and technologies they're developing to help people in the third world. I mean, there's some great stuff happening on this planet. There's some great stuff happening on this planet, but you have to change your focus a little bit in that direction. And you'll find, I think, as you do that more and more, you're going to automatically go towards those sources of information rather than the more negatively oriented sources of information. And it will have an overall positive impact on your mindset. All right? So I want you to give that a try, and if you do try it, and let us know how it went in the comments. Hit like if you like the video, or hit don't like if you don't like it. I won't be hurt. And make sure to subscribe if you find this content valuable. All right? As always, it's been a great deal of fun. I'm 𝗏𝗏. Until next time, take care.